Hello, everyone. It is Debbie D. Groat, and we're going to get started in just about 60 seconds with our webinar today. So if you could go ahead and type into the chat box your name, where you're from. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me loud and clear. There's always a little bit of a delay between when you hear me and when you actually type it into that box. So go right ahead and type in so I know you're out there. And then also, it is best to watch the webinar in Google Chrome. For some reason, the technology and the streaming just works much better in Google Chrome. And if you have any difficulties, just try going ahead and refreshing your browser. So we're going to give everyone just a minute to get on board with us. I see Kristen, I see Orlando, I see Lydia. Thank you guys. Okay, good. It's coming in now. They say they can hear us loud and clear. So awesome. Joanna, perfect. We have a huge group registered for this webinar today because this is such an awesome topic. And I want to encourage you guys too, to please feel free to type things in the chat box. Now, my daughter Taylor, president of the company here, she'll be watching the chat box in case you're having any technical difficulties. So as I mentioned, if you just joined us, it works best if you're on Google Chrome. If you have any problems, just try refreshing your browser. And we are going to cover a lot of really big things here today. And probably you're going to start typing in things like, are we going to get a copy of this? Yes, you will. Absolutely. We're going to make sure that you do, because it may be one you want to listen to again and again. However, I do encourage you to stay on live. All right, good. I see Vanessa, Dale, Ann, Arceli. Hey, Arceli. Kathleen. All right, guys, I think we're good to go. So here's what we're talking about today. We are talking about power negotiations. And I'm just welcoming back so many people like Arceli and Tammy and people that I've seen on our webinars before. I've met many of you at live events, so it's always great to have you on a webinar with me. And absolutely, someone asked in the chat box, there's David the Dutchman. David, I remember you. Okay, so yes, this is live, and I will be answering your questions. Taylor will answer your technical questions, but just a quick hello for those of you who are joining us for the first time. I saw a lot of new names on our roster. My name is Debbie D. Groat, and I am the co-owner and co-founder of Forward Coaching. Like many of you, I began my real estate career at a very young age. I started out at the age of 18. And I've told you guys, some of you, this story before, that when I walked into the real estate office on the first day, my broker said, okay, so here's the thing. Dress like you're 30. Do something with that wild hairdo you have. Lease a car, a used car, that will make them think they know what you're doing, even though you don't. And his comment to me was, you're going to screw up a lot. So you're going to blow a lot of transactions because you don't have the scripts, the skills, and the negotiation ability. And that's why you have to prospect 5 hours a day. Well, I did what he told me. It was kind of painful, right? I guess you could say I learned the hard way and had to grind it out and make a lot of mistakes. So my goal today is to help you share some of the great techniques and strategies that I've taught myself over the years that will help you improve conversion. Because think about it. You could do what I did when I started out, which is prospect 5 hours a day, and it worked for me. By the time I was 2 or 3 years in, I was doing 150 plus units a year as my personal production. But that's a lot of work, right? That's a painful way to go. What I would prefer is that we teach you how to do more in less time. So how to convert more quickly, and how to win those tough negotiations, because we know some of our sellers today, they're not liking the shifting market. And then we've got buyers going in trying to grind on the sellers. So there's a lot of tension around the negotiations today. And unfortunately, some of the agents that have been in the business only a few years, they just weren't taught, how do you handle these tough negotiations? And some of us who's been in the business for a long time maybe are a little bit rusty. So we're going to talk about all of that. And here's the great news. When you are a powerful persuader, not only can you sell more in less time, but you can remove a lot of the conflict and a lot of stress from the transaction. Now, I've had the pleasure for the last 20 years of running coaching companies, coaching over 80,000 private calls, hundreds of events like this. And then just recently, I partnered with an amazing guy, Ben Kinney. If you don't know him, you can look Ben up. Ben not only is Real Trends number 3 team in the nation, his team closes over 2,500 sides of business a year. He's also the owner of Brivity CRM and about 9 other technology companies in the real estate space. So we put all our tools, our technologies, and our resources together. So you guys will hear from Ben on a future webinar coming soon. So we're going to talk about these 3 secrets today. 1, how to increase your own personal charisma. 2, how to adapt to different personality styles and cultures. And 3, how to handle even the toughest negotiations with ease. So all great stuff. So I want to send you some gifts today. Number 1, I'm going to send you an interview with an ex-hostage negotiator. So some of you may have met Bob Lefevre on my team. Bob recently took another position, which I'm super excited for him, with a high-end luxury company here to help the CEO with some big growth projects. But Bob for years has been part of my coaching team, and Bob actually was an ex-FBI hostage negotiator. And in my interview with Bob, he shared some of the tips and strategies that he was taught in the FBI and how that works in the business world and how he used that when he left the FBI to really launch his real estate career. So we have that interview. We're going to send that to you. Also, if you've not yet taken the DISC assessment, I want to send you the link for that. And it's important to take it because you need to understand your own personality to know how it's going to impact your negotiations positively and negatively. And also what personality styles are going to be tougher that you're going to have to be more mindful in how you approach them. Now, as we often do on our webinars, we don't have a hard pitch about buying coaching. I don't put the programs up. I don't talk about how that works. This is an educational opportunity only. So what we are going to do, though, is for those of you who have questions about how you can get some more help from us, we're going to offer you an opportunity for a complimentary business strategy call with one of our team. Now, I want to give you, in case you have to leave a few minutes early, if you want to write this down, www.businessstrategycall.com. So I'll touch on it at the end, but in case you have to leave us early and you'd like to talk to myself, to one of my coaches, to my business strategist, we can talk a little bit more about how you can prepare for the year ahead and answer any questions you have about us. So no pressure, no obligation, just a great way to get connected, www.businessstrategycall.com. All right, so let's dive in. So today's consumers have developed antibodies to typical pitches. I read a book not long ago, and in the book it said that if the average consumer turns on their TV, looks at their phone, drives to work, looking at billboards, listening to the radio, just all the stuff we do in a normal day, that they will be hit with over 60,000 ad messages in the course of a week. Now, obviously, they're not all real estate messages, but the point was that they are oversold to the point that they've built up a callus to the pitches that might have worked in years past. And of course, let's face it, everybody knows more than one real estate agent, right? And I'm sure in any market, any neighborhood, they're being hit with multiple marketing messages. So we have to stand out. We have to be able to get behind that guard that they're holding up, that shield, and really get in their heart, get in their head so that we can move them forward. And of course, everybody wants to be seen as unique and may expect that anything you're doing for them is customized to them. I stopped at Starbucks this morning on the way to the office, and the person working there was so friendly and helpful and excited and happy. And of course, in my fantasy land, in my mind, it seems like the highlight of her day is making coffee for me. And yet we know it's not. But just like many of you do, maybe even hundreds of real estate transactions a year, you know that each of your clients and customers want to feel special. They want to be seen as unique, and they want to know that you are going to be the champion of their goals and you're going to customize that service to them. Now, even when you do a great job, though, and I'm sure most of you do an incredible job for your prospects and clients, the stress of buying and selling can send even the nicest people over the edge. Have you ever noticed? I kind of call it the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde syndrome. Have you noticed how you get a client and they're so wonderful and you're sitting down and you're listing their home and it's all great. You guys like each other. And then suddenly what happens? They turn into this maniac that's just so aggressive and they're sending you emails. And I was with the Stanfield group here on Monday, and they're one of the teams we coach. They are a mega team. You can look them up. Sean Stanfield, awesome group. And one of their agents was showing me on their phone this text that was like massive of this lady that was just losing her mind because her home had been on the market a week and wasn't yet sold. Okay, so we have to be a little patient, right? Now, any of us who have bought and sold our own real estate, we know it's stressful, even for us. Just imagine how they feel when it's all unknown. So part of resolving conflict, part of being a powerful negotiator is meeting them where they're at. It's walking a mile in their shoes, and it's really being patient with the drama that could ensue in these transactions. Now, of course, in luxury, and I know some of you joining us today, you do work the high end and the luxury market. And someone was asking, where am I? As I'm here talking to you today, we're in Newport Beach, California. So obviously Newport Beach is a luxury market. And in luxury markets, wealthy clients, we know that they're used to 5-star first class service. Odds are they're going to be even more demanding. And of course, they may not be as easy to build a relationship with, and they may want to keep you at a distance. So with anybody that you're working with, here's what I want you to think about. Let them set the pace. Remember, meet them where they're at. Respond the way they feel comfortable. If they just want to keep it very business, very professional, if they prefer you work through their attorney or their business manager, don't force it, right? So we have to look at what would be their ideal service scenario and adapt your process to them. But then we also want to think about the fact that the right words and the right approach can allow you to sell and list more faster and with less stress. And I was just talking to a fantastic client. He's relatively new to us. I was speaking to him yesterday. And now he's probably going to watch this webinar because he said to me, Debbie, I know that I can't make the webinar, but will you please send me the recording? Because he shared with me that even though he's an incredibly successful commercial broker, making lots and lots of money every year, that there was a lot of money left on the table in these tough negotiations. And so part of what he's been working with us on in coaching is how to choose the right words, the right approach, the right script when listing properties to discuss pricing, how to diffuse conflict, And he said, wow, in just a few short coaching sessions, and I don't want to quote him wrong, but I believe he said he's put several deals together that he felt would not have gone together, the money he would not have had if he hadn't had the coaching on the right words and the right approach. Because, guys, we've all had this happen where you're trying to negotiate or work with a client and suddenly you say something and boom, it's like a landmine blew up and they're furious at you. And you're like, whoa, what just happened here? Okay, so we want to be very mindful of how they make decisions, very mindful of their personality style. We want to meet them where they're at, and we want to choose our words very carefully. Now, here's the way I think about this, guys. When I think about power persuasion, I think of it like, there's like, I guess you'd say black magic and white magic. I think of it like the white magic, if you will, of being helpful, being considerate, because we're never looking to manipulate people into doing things they don't want to do. That would be completely out of integrity and unethical. However, what we do need to do, though, as a great salesperson, your job is to help them overcome their fear and hesitation so that they can achieve the goal that they have set. Let's face it, even your own mom isn't going to buy a house from you just because you want her to, right? But how often have we had clients where we see so clearly the right thing that they should do, to take that offer, to get the home on the market now before prices shift, to make the decision to make an offer and buy the home they love, but they get stuck. They get stuck in that fear and hesitation. So that's where the right words, the right approach, and staying in rapport can make all of the difference. Because here's the true fact. You have more power to persuade them than you even think you do. Much more power. So I study a lot of things about neuropersuasion, and this is not just related to real estate. So if you're fascinated by this topic, a great guru of neuroscience is Robert Cialdini. I'll try to spell it, Chillidin, something like that, Robert Cialdini. But there's a book, if you Google it, not per, but Pre-Suasion. Also, he has a book, The Power of Influence, and several others. So what Robert Cialdini, as a professor, has studied for years is how do people get persuaded to do the things that they do? And he came up with what he calls the 6 ways people are persuaded. Remember, you're going to get a copy of this webinar, so you'll see this slide, but I really want you to pay attention. And then I'm going to give you a couple examples, and you're going to go, wow, that makes sense. So no particular order, the way that people are persuaded to make any decision. And I got to share with you, this is called the blink response. And here's what Robert Cialdini said in his book. He said that today's consumers, us, everyone, we're so under pressure. We have so many things going on in our life, in our mind, in our world, that we've kind of developed a go-to of methods that we use to make a decision that make us feel comfortable. So number 1, reciprocity. I call it the theory of reciprocity. So when we do something for someone, they're much more likely to do something back for us. So I'll give you an example. Agents have been using it for years. You offer a free market evaluation. Well, we're offering a gift of a free market evaluation. What are we hoping for? That they will reciprocate by accepting a meeting with us. And if we're really hopeful, that they will reciprocate by listing with us, right? So all of you have done it. We offer a free report. We offer a free consult. We offer a gift. And that is so that they will hopefully reciprocate. So here's another quick example. Maybe you take a client a closing gift. So you're hoping that by giving them that gift, they will reciprocate with their loyalty and referrals. Okay. Number two, consistency. Robert says that people like to believe, we all like to believe that we're very consistent in our behavior and very practical. And yet we're all very emotional, especially when it comes to them, buying and selling real estate. So when you say to someone, Joaquin, because you are such a strong businessman, I know that when I share with you why this offer is absolutely an offer we should seriously consider, I know that it's going to make sense to you. See, what I'm trying to get Joaquin to do is be consistent, be logical, be that good businessman by telling him, I know this is who you are. And because of that, I know this is going to make sense to you. Okay, number three, social proof. What is social proof? Social proof is your testimonials and reviews. So when you're sitting at the table with someone, and let's say, Alicia, that they're grinding you on commission, and you're trying to prove to them that you are worth the fee that you are requesting. Okay, it's great that you show them marketing and you tell them about your track record, all of that's fine. And yet, if you can put in front of them reviews that say, sold my home for more, got me $50,000 over the list price, I was listed with a cut rate broker, it was a disaster. I listed with Alicia and I couldn't have imagined a better result. She is worth every penny. See, that carries a lot more weight when others do the proving, okay? Then number four, liking. Now, when we say liking, this is one I want to be very clear on. That simply means being in rapport, okay? It doesn't mean you have to be best buddies or best friends. It just means you are in rapport. There's a good connection, a good flow in the communication. Super critical to maintain that rapport. Number five, authority. So here's what's a little different. So I'll give you an example. So let's take my partner, Ben Kinney. So Ben Kinney's team is known nationally. He's on every stage. He's considered a great real estate thought leader. And so all of that is fine and good. It has more power, though, when he's listed on RealTrends as the number 3 team in the nation. Why? Because in the real estate industry, RealTrends is considered an authority. Or you look at our client, Sean Stanfield, who was ranked number 1 team in the past by Wall Street Journal. See, Wall Street Journal, that's an authority. So there's social proof. And then there's recognition from a higher power. That's why they have so many commercials on TV with doctors pitching drugs, right? Because these pharmaceutical companies know if they get a doctor to say that drug is good, you're more likely to listen. Then number 6, scarcity. Everyone wants what's rare or scarce. How many times have you said to a client, and meant it, this is not a manipulation, but a true fact, that we need to get your home on the market in the next couple of days, because when we do that, I'm going to be able to help you beat the holiday season. We're going to get out there and get that exposure, but we need to do it now. Or you might say, Mr. Buyer, there are 5 other offers coming in on this property. If you want to buy this property, we're going to have to make a great offer, and we're going to have to write and present right now. That's scarcity. Does it work? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because think about this. Why in the world do people line up in front of Walmart the night of Thanksgiving so that they can be the first one? They sleep on a cold sidewalk, sometimes even in the snow, so that when Walmart opens the door in the morning, they can get the quote doorbuster prize, which is probably a piece of junk that they get home and think, what did I do that for? But it's scarcity. Okay, so I think Philip said, can you also be viewed as an authority by teaching what others may not know? Yes, Philip, absolutely. So we're not going to go deep into this, Philip, in this course, but we have had other topics where we talk about how you can shine in your market as the wise advisor. And one of the great ways to shine as a wise advisor is be an author of a book, an author of a report, to hold an educational event, because then you're sharing your knowledge and wisdom in a way that's helpful and educational. In fact, I so believe in this that in our coaching, we actually have created 10 consumer guides, 10 resources. Is it time to move up or stay and remodel? How to downsize with distinction? How to purchase an investment property? And we've created these booklets so that our coaching clients could put their name on them and offer those up as evidence that they are a wise advisor. So absolutely, Philip. Okay. So let's look at all 6 of the 6 ways to persuade. Of all of the 6, liking is the most important. Now, would a buyer or seller ever work with you if they didn't like you? Sure, maybe. So let's say they walk into your open house and they don't like you, but they know that if they don't write an offer with you, they're probably not going to get the house. They might work with you. But for the most part, everything else you'll try to do won't work if you have no rapport. So when you're in rapport, they trust you, they feel comfortable, and they are listening to you. Okay, so before we go on, Becky is asking, she's saying, scarcity is not clear. Can you explain further? Becky, just think rare, scarce, limited time, window of opportunity. So I'm going to give Becky an example. I might say to Becky, Becky, I work with just a select group of sellers at any given time because I want to provide 5-star white glove service. And Becky, I would be very interested in taking on your project. And yet I would encourage you, we should make a decision today because I want to be sure that I have the opportunity to assist you. Or I might say, Becky, we have only a few weeks before we're going to be deep into the holiday season. This is our short window of opportunity to get your home on the market, to get a great buyer, and have you moving by the new year. So you see, it's rare, scarce, limited time window of opportunity. And just again, a quick reminder, establishing a deep rapport is not the same as establishing a commonality. So I see Javier just joined us. So let's say I went to Javier's house to list his house. And let's say I walk in the door and I see that Javier is a golfer. So I see all sorts of trophies and pictures of Javier golfing. And let's pretend, because I'm actually not, but let's pretend I'm a golfer. And I say, oh, Javier, you're a golfer. I'm a golfer too. Oh, I see you play at that course. I play at that course too. I was playing there last weekend. Here's what my score was, blah, 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 blah. Guess what though, guys? That's establishing a commonality. That is not establishing rapport because you see, Javier probably doesn't really care about whether I'm a golfer or not. At least not yet. See, when you go in to an appointment with a prospect and you attempt to establish a commonality and you force that, what they often see is they see right through it. They see it as a salesperson's, quote, attempt to establish rapport. As you get to know them and work with them, you guys may very much discover that you have things in common that you enjoy talking about, and that's a whole different thing. It just should not be your go-to in order to establish rapport. So to move them forward, as we said a few moments ago, be mindful of every word, every action, meet them where they're at, which means we have to put our own agenda in the back seat. We have to stop thinking about the commission. We have to stop talking so much about ourselves, and we have to go to where they're at and meet them where they're at. This is a great book. I would highly recommend it. Actually, Bob Lefevre, whose interview I'm going to send you, Bob Lefevre knows Chris Voss. They're actually friends. They work together in the FBI. And Bob recommended this book to me. It's a great read. It's not a huge book. And for those of you who like very interesting stories, he shares some really great stories. And he talks about how Harvard Business School used to teach negotiation strategies a certain way. Well, what the FBI discovered is when they were using those negotiation strategies out in the field, people were actually getting killed. It wasn't working. So the FBI did all sorts of studies on what works. And he actually has since gone back in and taught the Harvard instructors on how to do it the FBI way. So in the book, Never Split the Difference, he shares the tips that are field tested for how to talk anyone, he says, into or out of just about anything. But what you're to find is very interesting as you read the book. Everything we're talking about today, that's exactly what they do when they're dealing with a hostage negotiator. So if they're dealing with a terrorist, or I should say a terrorist, when they're dealing with a terrorist and they're using the techniques today, I think it might just help you with your seller or buyer who's a little bit stressed out, right? Now, one thing Chris said in the book, he said, don't worry about being too nice. That if you're so nice, you're not going to be able to take the bull by the horns and get the job done. Instead, be business minded and strategic. Now you notice he didn't say be aggressive, because aggressive might be the thing that just blows up that situation. You know, Bob Lefevre talked about when he was fairly new in the FBI and there was a hijacking on a plane, and he was allowed to go in with the head negotiator, and they were there to talk to the terrorists. Well, the terrorists were holding, the plane hostage, but also the terrorist was down on the floor with his arm around the neck of a flight attendant with a gun to her head. And what Bob said was very interesting is the hostage negotiator, the FBI guy, got down on the floor, laid down on the floor, looked right in the guy's eye, and talked to him very calmly and said, now, let's talk about what you want. You don't need to do something that you're going to regret. This lady has nothing to do with this. This is about you and I. This is about you and I. Look at me. Talk to me. Now, was he nice? No, he wasn't nice. He wasn't turning over the plane to the guy, right, and serving him cookies. No, he was being business-minded and strategic. But wow, talk about pressure, right, to have to talk a terrorist away from that kind of an explosive situation. So just remember, though, under pressure, your clients may become more erratic. And the more erratic they are, the more calm you must be. You know that old commercial where they said, what did they used to say? Never let them see you sweat, right? So they can't see you sweat. You need to be dead calm. So I put this little graphic here because this is just a little technique that I use. When something or someone is really pushing my buttons and I feel you know how you feel your blood pressure spike, right? You know that saying, I saw red, right? Because you got frustrated and your blood pressure spiked. What I try to tell myself in that situation is flatline on a heart monitor, right? Just, I'm over here, and I'm like, calm down, flatline. Now, I try to become more unattached and more focused. So I can't be so worried like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. They're telling me that they've got buyer's remorse and they're going to back out of the deal. And it's taken me 6 months to find this home for them. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. And you're all over here. Flatline. Okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? Maybe they won't buy the house. I need to calm down. I need to slow down. And I need to address the issue. So I'll give you an example of how I've addressed that issue hundreds of times in my career. You know, Edna, I want to tell you that I can appreciate buying a home is stressful. I'm on your side. And if you do not want to buy this property and you ask me to do my best to get you out of the deal, Edna, I will do whatever you request. Now, what I'd like to ask, though, for your sake, is let's stop for just a moment before I push the button to cancel everything. And let's think about the 6 months, all of the houses we looked at. And let's go back to a couple of days ago when you were so excited. And I have my notes, Edna, where you shared with me that the home checked all the boxes of what you were looking for. So Edna, here's an idea. Here's a thought. Why don't we do this? Before I cancel this for you, which I will whenever you tell me to, why don't I set us up an appointment to get back in the house? No pressure. I'll even wait on the porch because I feel that when you go through the home again, you're going to either know I absolutely want out of this deal, or you know what? I just got nervous. I love it. I want to move forward. So you owe it to yourself after all this hard work to get this far. Just take one more look. See, here's what I know, guys. I know that Edna probably is just getting scared, okay? That, wow, there's so much going on in the negotiations and the request for repairs, and I'm freaking out, and it's just so much to deal with. And she's lost touch with the emotion of that property. So I got to get her back in touch with the emotion of that property. I just got to get her in the door. And usually, guys, honestly, that normally solved the problem. But did you notice that I'm very calm and I talked a little softer and I talked a little more slowly? So one thing I want you guys to remember is when you're in this kind of situation, your natural tendency is going to be to talk faster, to talk louder. This is what we need. Now, no, Edna, you don't know. We looked at all these houses. Guess what's going to happen? Boom. Broken rapport. You just repelled Edna. She's going to hang up the phone, shut it down, and you lost the hostage. You lost the negotiation. So dead calm, flat line on a heart monitor. Speak slowly. Speak softly. It calms the nerves, okay? So as the situation is more tense, speak more calmly, more slowly. You must be the calm, cool head. And remember, this includes all parties, not just your buyer or your seller. I get it, guys, that sometimes the real estate agents that are on the other side of your transactions or the vendors or affiliates, they could potentially be awful, horrible to work with, demanding, rude, angry. It could happen. And if you let that spike and you get defensive and you get aggressive, you're going to lose the deal. And not just that you'll lose the commission, you may lose the deal for your customer or client, and that's just not okay. So our ego has no place in the negotiations, and no matter who you're dealing with in that entire transaction, act as if they are your client. Act as if you are negotiating with them, and be that calm, cool head. And Vanessa asked, what about those high Ds? And Vanessa, we're going to talk about that in a second, okay? Because when you're the calm, cool head in the deal, you are the agent everybody wants to work with, which means your buyers have an advantage. Your offers often get to the top of the list, and agents often show your listings because absolutely you want to be the other agent that they want to work with. Now, Rebecca said that sometimes talking like that could sound condescending. Rebecca, not when you're in that moment, in that situation, when they're so stressed, when your intention, and this is the important thing, guys, your intention has to be good. Now, when you're listening to me on the webinar, obviously we're over dramatizing the technique. So you'll really lock on it. It's going to be more subtle when you're interacting with the client, but just remember, just take it down. Okay. Whatever that level is for you, whatever that level is in the moment, if you talk fast, if you fire words at them, if you're aggressive, they'll shut down, right? So the more tense they are, the more calm you need to be. Okay, Ernie Carswell, great guy. Look up Ernie, Beverly Hills. Ernie works with some really tough people because he's in Hollywood, famous actors, actresses, musicians, they're business managers. These are big, giant egos used to having their way. One of the things that Ernie and I often work on is we'll work on strategies in our coaching sessions on how to approach that customer the right way. We think about the pressures that they're going through. We think about their personality. We think about the words we should use. We think about the benefits for them in the outcome. And we structure and script out that conversation because, for Ernie, I think his most expensive listing was 110 million. Okay. Now, often they're 5, 10, 20, 30 million, still big, and obviously bigger than many of us have ever sold. My point being, though, Ernie is hyper aware that in every situation, he and his client have a lot to lose. So he's very careful about the strategy and the approach. Because if you don't consciously work to adapt, you could potentially repel 50% of the people or opportunities that you meet. So you're going to have to work twice as hard to do half as much, and it's going to be more stressful. Boris is another great story. When Boris came to us for coaching, Boris is super brilliant, super analytical, and yet he was stuck at a certain plateau. And he said, Debbie, I think the reason I'm stuck is because I'm getting to the table, but when I'm going out on these listings, I'm only winning 48%. And he said, I'm really good. I don't know what's happening here. Well, as I looked at this with Boris, what was happening, he's so analytical. He was approaching every appointment as if they were very hyper analytical. And so therefore, the personality styles who don't like that type of analytics, who are not likely to make a decision in an analytical fashion, see, they weren't choosing Boris. So there was no rapport. So what Boris had to do is just simply become much more mindful. We would look at who is his customer, what is their style, what should his approach be, just like I do with Ernie, and you can see what happened. He didn't spend more, he didn't work more, and he doubled his commission income because his listing taken ratio went from 48% up to 90%. Big deal, right, guys? So people are puzzles. Think about that. They are puzzles. We're going to be looking at how they speak, how they dress, what's important to them. And just like this little chameleon here, we're going to adapt. Think of it like this. It's like you're working to speak their language because if they cannot understand you, rapport will not occur. So here's the DISC assessment. Now, this is actually a 25-page report, and we actually used Bob Lefever's DISC, which is kind of fun. So this is Bob's personality you see here. And one of the things that Bob often talks about you'll hear on his interview, you can see that of all the four styles, Bob is a very high I. I is his highest style. I being interactive, influencer, which means Bob likes to talk. And in his FBI training, they told Bob, you got to talk less and listen more. So Bob's strength was good communicator. You see the S is green, very stabilizing, very nice guy. But then you also see Bob's C is very low. He's not very analytical. So how does that serve him? How does that help him? That's what Bob needs to be thinking about in each of his interactions, and so do you. So when you take the DISC assessment, it will only take you 10 minutes. Please don't overthink it, okay? Just answer the easy questions instinctively. It's only going to take about 10 minutes. And as soon as you're done, it's going to email you. So you're going to be looking for, you can see at the bottom of the screen there, Intermetrics. So we license the rights for this. So Intermetrics will send you your report. It might go to your spam. Sometimes it does, but you'll get it in 10 minutes and it will be 25 pages all about you. So I encourage you to take it. And remember, we're all a combination of four styles, but the high style will dominate. So I'm a 99D or driver. My D dominates, but I have S, I have C, but my D dominates. Each of your customers have that same thing going on. And the natural style is you being you. And to answer Janie, the gray bars, and I'm going to click back to that, the color bar is the natural style, you being you when you're totally comfortable. The gray bar is where you go when you're stressed or under pressure or being observed. So you notice with Bob, his gray bar, the I went up. So actually in a tense hostage situation, unfortunately, if Bob isn't careful, his tendency would be to talk more and talk faster. And that could be a problem, just like it would be a problem with a client in a difficult negotiation. Okay? So know who you are and then know who you're dealing with. So we're not going to ask our prospects to take a test, right? We're not going to send them a link, ask them to do the DISC. So you have to learn to recognize them. And this is why we're going to send this to you. I'm watching the clock. I'm going to have to go pretty fast here. So a high D, how do you know if you're talking to a high D? They're probably a leader in their profession. They're very action focused. They move people forward. Fast paced, impatient. They drive the action. They're also going to be very decisive, very demanding, very in control, very direct. And they want to feel they've got all the power. And also, they're very practical and logical. That's a high D. A high I. They like to influence people. They're more emotional in a dramatic way. They're more outspoken. They're more spontaneous. So they're going to be high profile. They're going to be in roles that are very social. They're going to be very expressive and charismatic. So for example, they could say, they might be the type of seller that would say, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. This is incredibly stressful. Well, that's not a high D. That's a high I. A high D would say, I am stressed out. I don't like what's happening. Fix it, right? Two different styles of speaking. Then we have our high S, very stable, very cooperative, very meticulous, very calm, very predictable. They would be the kind that would say, you know, I hope you could come over tonight at 6. I hope that won't interrupt your dinner. You know, I'm going to have to ask my children before I make this decision to sell the home because I don't want them to be unhappy. probably dealing with a high S. So they think first, they process more slowly, and they're going to be much quieter. Now, Fred is asking, are high I's mostly extroverts? Absolutely, Fred. But it's going to depend on how high they are. So above the midline, above 50 is considered a higher I. But when you get up there like Bob was into the 91, that's a very high I. And yes, very extroverted. So the high C behavior, very analytical, very accurate, very cautious, very meticulous. They're also going to come across cool and aloof, and they are perfectionist. So when you're thinking about the puzzle of who are these people, what do they do for a living? Ask them. So guys, if someone says that they're a rocket scientist, what do you think they are? They're going to be a high C, right? If they say they're a teacher, ask them, what do you teach? Well, I teach chemistry, high C. But if they say, oh, I run the drama department, probably high I, right? So you're going to look at their profession or previous profession. You're going to listen to how they speak. High D's, very direct, very few words, a little bit harsh, a little bit blunt. And they use phrases like get to the point, cut to the chase. No one else speaks that way. High I, very outgoing, very talkative, lots of grandiose language. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Nobody else speaks that way. High S, very soft spoken, very calm, almost a little bit meek side, a little bit meeker. No one else behaves that way. High C, they're going to talk about numbers. They're going to talk about data. They're going to be very statistically minded. Now, they still make decisions based on emotion, but they use more reasons and logic to justify that emotion. So if they're a high D, this is the type of work they're likely to do: an entrepreneur, commission sales, chief executive, upper management. If they're a high I, they might be, again, commission sales, tour guides, public relations, performer. High S, counselor, support services. High C, engineer, scientific, technical. So you ask them what they do for a living, it's going to be the first clue in your puzzle. Then you're going to look at how they dress. Are they, very dressed for success? Are they a high I, a little more flamboyant? High S will dress very conservative. I often think of like J. Crew or Gap or, something just real conservative. They don't want to stand out. High C, also very conservative, very buttoned up. They won't be as likely to spend a lot on clothing. High D might be a little more continental styling. So I'm listening to them speak. I'm looking at what they do for a living, and I'm looking at how they dress. That's going to give me a clue. Now, once I feel I've got a lock, I'm going to code their file, because I want to remember when I open up that file, I need to adjust and I need to speak their language. Because if I'm speaking Spanish and you speak English, you won't understand me, right? So Joey is asking, or Joelle is asking, what am I? I'm a 99D. So strong, direct, to the point. Guess what's my kryptonite? A 99S. They're so polar opposite that it's hard for me to communicate effectively with a high S if I don't be careful. So let's say that Joelle is a high S, and I'm going to go list Joelle's house. Now, the high D, here's how I want to go in. All right, Joelle, I'm here. I'm fabulous. I sell lots of houses. I know what price it needs to be. Let's sign this listing and let's get it done. Of course, that's how I would like to be. But I know that Joelle is going to need time, and I'm going to need to move more slowly. And by the way, guys, I'm not going to go back in the slides. We are going to send you a copy of this presentation. So don't worry, you're going to get this. So I know that I need to say to Joelle, Joelle, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me over. And I'd like to hear more about your concerns about the move, how your family feels about the move. Talk to me about your expectations of the professional you will hire. See, I got to calm myself down, because if I go in there the way I'd like to be, she'll shut down. I will instantly repel her. And you might be the best agent for the job, just like Boris was the best agent for the job, but 52% were not choosing him until he adapted. Now, remember, if you've got, let's say, 2 spouses, 2 partners, you're going to have to speak to each one in their style. So if the husband is very analytical, Mr. Seller, I brought some data and some statistics. I want to show you those now. If the wife is very high S, Mrs. Seller, talk to me a little bit about how you're feeling about this. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about the move. So you're going to have to go back and forth again, just as if they speak different languages. So know yourself, know your style, and know how it's going to impact your interaction with each customer based on their style. So if you are a high D, this is probably you. Top producer, high energy, accepts challenges, aggressive. That's all good. Here's the flip side of that, though. Impatient, maybe a little lax on my follow-up. I might be a little pushy, a little restless. Okay, so I have to watch that. High I, very concerned, optimistic, customer service, gets along with others. Flip side, could be a little unorganized, might overwhelm, might talk more than I listen. Right? So good and bad. So we have to know ourselves and balance that out. High S, caring, patient, very dependable. If you're a high S, though, you might resist change. You might resist adapting to new ideas. You might not want to rock the boat by telling a client what they need to do to move forward, because I don't want to rock the boat. So we have to watch that. High C, you're logical, you're precise. On the flip side, though, you might be slow to make a decision. You might be too obsessed with the details. So no high style is better than another. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. But here, I'll give you an example. This is really easy. So I was with friends on the weekend, and the question came up, where would we all like to go for dinner? Well, guys, I'm a high D. I know exactly where I want to go to dinner, and I want to tell them, and I want them all to cooperate because I'm a high D. But see, before I speak, I stop myself and say, okay, I can't be bossy. Got to stop it. Got to slow it down. And instead ask the group, what would you like to do? Right? And then if they ask my opinion, I'm going to give it. But it's just being aware. Be aware. So simple steps, because we're almost out of time, how to build your charisma. I'd love to tell you this Bill Clinton story, but unfortunately, guys, I'm not going to have time other than to give you the short version that a charisma coach that I had in the past had an opportunity to encounter Bill Clinton. And his comment was that Bill Clinton had an amazing personal charisma. And actually, the person telling me the story said he was not a Bill Clinton fan, but he was so impressed by Bill's charisma. And he broke it down for me. And he said, here's what he did so masterfully. And this is like the magic recipe for charisma. Mirror and match their rate of speech, their tone, their speech pattern. Sprinkle in some of the words they say. Maintain eye contact 90% of the time. Ask questions about things that are important to them. Acknowledge and approve. That's a great question. I'm so glad you brought that up. Absolutely. You are so right. Acknowledge and approve. And get rid of the word but, because it's argumentative. Oh, you're so right. But here's something. Nope. You just argued. You just broke that rapport. You're so right. And here's something else we might want to consider. And don't use the word why, because why is confrontational. Why are you doing that? Mr. Seller, why aren't you listening to me when I tell you we need to adjust the price? or I'm laughing because Christy said, don't show me Bill Clinton. I'm not his fan. And you know what, Christy, that was exactly the point. If you could have heard the whole story, that Ron Arden, my coach at the time, was definitely not a fan. And his comment was, after a few minutes with Bill Clinton, and I'm going to tell you exactly what he said. This is not my political comment. This is what Ron Arden said. He said, I realized why he got away with so much, because his personal charisma was unbelievable. So interesting story. I'll have to tell you guys another time. So be firm in your negotiations. Always give them a way to save face. If you have to say no, offer an alternative. I can't do that. However, here is what I can do. Adapt to their culture. There's some great books out there on adapting to culture. Adapt to their generation. I'll have to tell you later, because I'm watching the clock, August. We're out of time, about this great story, my Vietnamese client. I'll tell you about that later. If they're ranting, let them vent, then acknowledge them and calmly redirect them. Remind them you're on their side. You are not the enemy. Okay? And our negotiating strategies today, I know we covered a lot and we ran out of time, so I can see clearly we're going to need to do this webinar again for you guys. And I'm going to need to do an expanded version, maybe a 2-hour version. Also, we're going to do an event here in January in Newport Beach, and we're going to make this part of that. But I wanted to give you one more time the opportunity here, as we ran out of time. If you'd like to reach out to us to find out some of these magical things that we help our clients do and how we do that, go ahead and right now write down www.businessstrategycall.com. www.businessstrategycall.com. Or you can email me direct, Debbie@forwardcoaching.com. We'd love to help you. We can change the game. Our goal is to help you increase your production. Like many of our clients have double production in a year with us, and do it with less stress and less pressure. So www.businessstrategycall.com. We certainly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to get the gifts out to you ASAP. All right. Have a great day, guys. Talk to you soon.